Hello, brothers and sisters. I'm delighted to welcome you for yet another session of studying the Word of God together again. Previously, we were looking at the family dispute of Aaron, Miriam, and Moses. Miriam and Aaron found fault with Moses with regards to marrying an Ethiopian woman. Moses later was accused of taking all the credit as a spokesman of God. This angered God, resulting in the judgment of Miriam with leprosy. The next incident we saw was at Kadesh Barnea, the sending of the 12 spies and their reports. We learned that it was never God's idea to send in spies in the first place. Though they brought a thorough report of their spying, their lack of faith was so soon exposed by the doubts and fears they professed. They were so overwhelmed to the point that despair struck their hearts, eliminating God out completely. To find out further on what happened next, join me again on another episode of Through the Bible.
Our study for today is based on Numbers chapter 14. Israel has now come to the place of decision. They must decide whether they are going to enter the land or not. We find Israel refusing to enter. The reason is their unbelief. The Bible is its own best commentary, and it is the writer to the Hebrews who puts it just that way. Hebrews chapter 3 verses 17 to 19. But with whom was he grieved 40 years? Was it not with them that had sinned, whose carcasses fell in the wilderness, and to whom sware he that they would not enter into his rest? But to those who did not believe, so we see that they could not enter in because of their unbelief. It was unbelief, friends, that kept them from going into the promised land. Verse 1, that night all the people of the community raised their voices, wept aloud. All the Israelites grumbled against Moses and Aaron, and the whole assembly said to them, if only we had died in Egypt or in this desert. I am of the opinion that Moses and Aaron at this time were wishing they had died in the wilderness and had got rid of all this continual complaining. Verse 3, why is the Lord bringing us to this land? Only to let us fall by the sword? Our wives, our children will be taken as plunder. Wouldn't it be better for us to go back to Egypt? Notice, friends, what they are saying in verse 3. They are saying that God did not care what happened to his children. Do you know who entered the land? It was these very same children, that next generation. The old folks, the old people sat there and cried and said they were thinking of the safety of their children. The fact of the matter was that God was thinking of the safety, and he brought the children into the land. But the whole assembly talked about stoning them. Then the glory of the Lord appeared at the tent of meeting to all the Israelites. Have you noticed, friends, that every time there is a grumbling or a murmuring or complaining, the glory of the Lord appears? God is highly displeased with rebellion against him in the camp. The Lord said to Moses, how long will these people treat me with contempt? How long will they refuse to believe me? In spite of all the miraculous signs I have performed among them, I will strike them down with a plague and destroy them. But I will make you into a greater nation and stronger than they. God is saying, I'll destroy them and make a nation from you to fulfill my promises. Now, notice, friends, how Moses pleads for Israel. Moses said to the Lord in verse 13, "Then the Egyptians will hear about it. By your power, you brought these people up from among them, and they will tell the inhabitants of this land about it. They have already heard that you, O Lord, are with these people, and that you, O Lord, have been seen face to face, and that your cloud stays over them, and that you go before them in a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. If you put these people to death all at one time, the nations who have heard this report about you will say, 'The Lord was not able to bring these people into the land he promised them on oath, so he slaughtered them in the desert.' How may the Lord's strength be displayed, just as you have declared? The Lord is slow to anger, abounding in love, forgiving sin and rebellion. Yet he does not leave the guilty unpunished. He punishes the children for the sin of the fathers to the third and fourth generation, in accordance with your great love. Forgive the sin of these people, just as you have pardoned them from the time they left Egypt until now." Moses, friends, reminds God that the rumor will go around that although he was able to bring them out of Egypt, he was not able to put them into the promised land to complete that which he had begun. God agrees to go ahead with them and put Israel into the promised land. Verse 20, the Lord replied, "I have forgiven them as you asked." And then the Lord gives this prophecy. Verse 21, "Nevertheless, as surely as I live, and as surely as the glory of the Lord fills the whole earth, not one of the men who saw my glory and the miraculous signs I performed in Egypt and in the desert, but who disobeyed me and tested me 10 times, not one of them will ever see the land I promised on oath to their forefathers. No one who has treated me with contempt will ever see it. But because my servant Caleb has a different spirit and follows me wholeheartedly, I will bring him into the land he went to, and his descendants will inherit it. Since the Amalekites and the Canaanites are living in the valleys, turn back tomorrow and set out toward the desert along the route to the Red Sea." Friends, judgment falls on the children of Israel. The generation that murmured will not enter the promised land. Joshua and Caleb are the only ones whom God singles out from the entire people. God promises that they will enter the land, and God kept his promise. Verse 29, "In this desert your bodies will fall, every one of you 20 years old or more, who was counted in the census and who has grumbled against me. Not one of you will enter the land I swore with uplifted hand to make your home, except Caleb son of Jephunneh and Joshua son of Nun. As for your children that you said would be taken as plunder, I will bring them in to enjoy the land you have rejected. But you, your bodies will fall in this desert." Their children that they implied God did not care about would be brought safely into the land that they would not enter. Verse 33, Your children will be shepherds here for 40 years, suffering for your unfaithfulness, until the last of your bodies lies in the desert. For 40 years, 1 year for each of the 40 days you explored the land, you will suffer for your sins and know what it is like to have me against you. I, the Lord, have spoken, and I will surely do these things to this whole wicked community which has banded together against me. They will meet their end in this desert. There they will die. God, dear friend, tells them that they will wander in the wilderness for 40 years, 1 year for each day the spies were in the land. So the men Moses had sent to explore the land returned and made the whole community grumble against him by spreading a bad report about it. These men responsible for spreading the bad report about the land were struck down and died of a plague before the Lord. Friends, the 10 spies who brought the evil report and led in the rebellion died in the plague. When Moses reported this to all the Israelites, they mourned bitterly. They had turned from the land, but as they faced the wilderness, they were actually more afraid of the wilderness than they were afraid of entering the land. Early the next morning, they went up toward the hill country. We have sinned, they said. We will go up to the place the Lord promised. But Moses said, why are you disobeying the Lord's command? This will not succeed. Do not go up because the Lord is not with you. You will be defeated by your enemies. They had lost their opportunity. They would not go up into the land when God wanted them to go. Now they presume to go up. This is presumption. Faith is not presumption. They again want to go their way rather than God's way. There can be no victory when there is no submission to the will of God. Chapter 15 now, verse 1. The Lord said to Moses, speak to the Israelites and say to them, after you enter the land I am giving you as a home. Notice, friends, God is now telling them things which they are to do when they enter the land. 40 years later, Israel in a new generation entered the land, and they did the things which their fathers neglected to do. And you present to the Lord offerings made by fire from the herd or the flock as an aroma pleasing to the Lord, whether burnt offerings or sacrifices, for special vows or for freewill offerings or festival offerings. Then the one who brings his offering shall present to the Lord a grain offering of 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour, mixed with 1/4 of a hin of oil. With each lamb for the burnt offering or the sacrifice, prepare 1/4 of hin of wine as a drink offering. With a ram, prepare a grain offering of 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour, mixed with 1/3 of a hin of oil, and 1/3 of a hin of wine as a drink offering. Offer it as an aroma pleasing to the Lord. When you prepare a young bull as a burnt offering or sacrifice for a special vow or a fellowship offering to the Lord, bring with the bull a grain offering of 3/10 of an ephah of fine flour, mixed with half a hin of oil. Notice, friends, now God goes on to talk to talk to them about offering. A hin of oil was to be put on it, which speaks of the Holy Spirit. Then there was to be the fourth part of a hin of wine for a drink offering, and that speaks of joy. Notice how God says, when you prepare a bull, God talks to them about what they will do in the land as definitely as if it were already done. Although this generation, friends, in the wilderness will turn back to idolatry, the new generation that is coming into the land will offer these offerings, which will speak of the person of the Lord Jesus Christ Himself. Now he mentions something which we have previously seen in our study of the book of Leviticus, the offering for sins of ignorance. Verse 24 to 26 as we close our study for today. And if this is done unintentionally, without the community being aware of it, then the whole community is to offer a young bull for a burnt offering as an aroma pleasing to the Lord, along with its prescribed grain offering and drink offering, and a male goat for a sin offering. The priest is to make atonement for the whole Israelite community, and they will be forgiven, for it was not intentional, and they have brought to the Lord for their wrong an offering made by fire and a sin offering. The whole Israelite community and the aliens living among them will be forgiven because all the people were involved in the unintentional wrong. Sins of ignorance had to have an offering too. So men are lost because they are sinners. Whether or not they have come under the sound of the gospel, I believe every man should have an opportunity to hear the gospel and to make a decision. But men are lost long before they hear and reject the gospel. Jesus Christ came to seek and to save that which were lost. And all men are lost. That is their natural state. Lost mankind is not sitting down in grief today because they have not heard the gospel. Man is ignorant, and this is man's undoing. I am reminded of what Benjamin Franklin once said: sin is not hurtful because it is forbidden. It is forbidden because it is hurtful. Friends, salvation may come quietly, but we should never keep quiet about it. If Christ is worth possessing, He is worth professing. D.T. Niles says, the gospel is one beggar telling the other beggar where to find bread. Martin Luther said, if Christ were coming tomorrow, I would plant a tree today. Friends, we need to share the gospel. We need to share. This is the need of the hour.
Dear friends, it is frightening to think what disbelief can result to. But we are not much different from the Israelites many times. Our ignorance of God's goodness and power often blind us into believing that He does not care for us enough. We should remember that the promised land was God's idea and that God has done marvelous acts both in Egypt and the wilderness to sustain His people. But that generation of Israelite leaders never let that sink deep. They lost that lifetime opportunity of having the Creator of the universe on their side. Dear friends, the same situation can be ours too. We need to pray that faith abounds within us and that our hearts are yielded to obedience, recognizing opportune times. As we thank God that His mercies never failed, let us pray that He will keep pushing us always. I hope to see you again in our next study. Till then, God bless.
Did you like this program? Give us a missed call now, and you may be the next winner.